Okay, so I have a cat. He'll probably leave in just a second. Yep, he already left. I am going to be going over some conversions problems today. There's 8 problems total, 8. I'll do a problem, walk you through, give you some steps or some pointers, and then I'll show the next problem, read it, and give you some time to solve, like meaning you would want to pause the video and then solve it and then unpause it, and then I'll go over the answer and how to do it. If you get the problem right, I would just suggest skipping over Miss Wright's explanation and then going to the next problem. But if you miss the problem or you only have part of it right, I would suggest stopping and listening to my explanation before going on to the next problem. So without further ado, I would make sure that you have a pencil and a sheet of paper and your agenda. So now would be a good time if you don't have those things, pencil, paper, agenda, go pause the video, get those 3 things and come back. I'm going to dive into the first problem. So the first problem says the heights of 3 boxes are shown. Put the measurements in order from shortest to tallest. So shortest to tallest. So I'm looking for the littlest to put in the first box and then tallest in the last box. So we have 2 yards, 5 feet, and 37 inches. And so I always look for the larger unit to exchange for a smaller unit. So if I have yards, feet, and inches, yards is the largest unit that we have, and I'd want to convert it into the next unit. So I could draw myself squares or circles or boxes. So I'm going to just do circles to kind of just say, okay, these are my yards. I have 2 of them. And so if I grab my agenda and look at the conversion information, a yard is 3 feet. So inside of those circles that are yards, that's my 1 yard, 2 yards, this is 3 feet, this is 3 feet. So 2 yards is the same thing as 6 feet. So I could write that right above what I have. So I have 2 yards is the same thing as 6 feet. So if I'm comparing, I already know that the 6 feet is larger than the 5 feet. Okay, so then I also have to compare it to the 37 inches. And so what I can do now is say to myself, well, these 6 feet, I could exchange them for inches, or I could leave it like it is now and see if I need to do that again later. Okay, so then I want to say my feet, I want to compare it to my inches. So I'd have to draw myself 5 circles, 5 boxes, whatever. So those are my 5 feet. I could label them each, or I could even just give myself a little bracket and say these are my 5 feet. And then each of those feet or foot is, if you didn't know, you could look and see 1 foot is 12 inches. So I could go 12 inches, 12 inches, 12 inches, 12 inches, 12 inches. And then I could add that all up. So we got 12 plus 12 is 24, plus 12 more is 36, plus 12 more is 48, plus 12 more is 60. Okay, so I have 60 inches. And so I would write that right above it. 5 feet is the same thing as 60 inches. So if I'm comparing, 37 inches is less than that 60. And I know that 5 feet is less than that 6 feet. And if you wanted even more proof that this is the largest, I could take the 6 feet and exchange it for inches. Meaning if I know if 5 of them are 60, I could just add 12 more to that 1 more foot, and that's 72 inches. This is 72. And then it might be easier for you to compare all of them in inches. So my 37 is the shortest, so I'd write in 37. My 60 inches is next, but I'm not going to write in 60. I'm going to write in 5 feet because that's what I was given. And then the next one is 72 inches, but I'm going to write in 2 yards. 2 yards. Okay, so now I'm going to give you your problem. I'm going to read it to you and then explain it. And you're going to want to pause and use a paper and pencil to do it yourself. So the problem says the height of 3 boxes are shown. Put the measurements in order from shortest to tallest. So it's the same thing you just did. Shortest, you're looking for the littlest, to tallest, you're looking for the largest. So you have 2 meters, 400 centimeters, and 1,000 millimeters. Okay, you're wanting the shortest to tallest, and I have that agenda underneath, so you want to make sure you use your agenda for that conversion information. So now's a good time. Pause, put them in order from shortest to tallest. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer, and if you get it correct, you can go on to the next problem. However, if you miss it, you might want to stop and listen to the reason why you missed part of it or all of it. So the shortest is actually going to be 1,000 millimeters, mm for millimeters. Then coming next, you have 2 meters, and then the tallest is actually 400 centimeters. Okay, and if you got that right, good job. Kind of skip through the video, go to the next problem, or you can just listen to this explanation. Okay, so I'm always going to look for the biggest thing I can exchange for smaller. So what I mean is if I've got meters, centimeters, and millimeters, the biggest unit I have is meters. So I want to think to myself, I've got 2 meters. I'm going to draw squares this time. Here are my 2 meters. And I want to try and exchange them for centimeters or millimeters. And luckily, I can actually do them both at the same time for this, because in my conversion chart, they're right next to each other. So I have 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So I could say 1 meter is 100 centimeters. Okay. And then it also tells me that 1 meter is the same thing as 1,000 millimeters. Okay, so I could also think of this as 1,000 millimeters. And then I would want to think to myself, 2 meters is the same thing as 100 plus 100 centimeters, which is 200 centimeters, plus 1,000, that's 2,000 millimeters. I'll put my commas in there because I know somebody would say she forgot her commas. Okay, so then 2 meters is 200 centimeters, or 2,000 millimeters. Okay, so I already can see that this 200 or 2,000 is more, or excuse me, less than this 400 centimeters, because 200 centimeters is less than 400. And then if I can compare these two and say this one is actually larger than this, or this one's smaller, okay? And so I could think to myself, 1,000 millimeters, that's very similar to what was on my chart. 1,000 millimeters is 1 meter, so 1 meter. So I could say, oh, this is 2 meters, that's only 1 meter, that's less, okay? And then if you could even want to, you could even go a step further and say 400 centimeters. Well, every 100 centimeters, you have a meter. So you got 100 centimeters, that's a meter. 200 centimeters, that's a second meter, kind of like this one. So this is actually 4 meters. So you could look meters, meters, meters. That's one way you could do it. Okay, so this one is probably one of the longer problems that you might have to do. So then got the hard one out of the way, I feel. Cat's in the back looking at himself. All right, I'm going to move him out of the way so we don't watch him the whole time. Okay, so we have another problem. This one's just asking us to convert one step and done. So it won't take us as long. So I'm going to do one and then you'll do one. So it says an elephant can weigh up to 7 tons. 7 tons. If I was to cube it and circle my number, it says how many pounds does a 7-ton elephant weigh? I can underline my question, and then I might box in some math keywords. It's talking about pounds. How many pounds? So essentially I'm thinking to myself, 7 tons, I want to know how many pounds is that. And I could do the same thing as I did before. I can draw myself 7 groups to represent each of those tons. There's 7 tons. And I want to change them into pounds. And that's where I would go to my conversion sheet. One of these pounds, I have to know what it's worth. Okay, and I could go and look. 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. And so 1 ton, I would write 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. Just keep labeling these 2,000. And then I would have to total it all up. So if each of them is 2,000, I can essentially count by 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, but I'm not going to just write 14 pounds because technically I was counting by 2,000. So then it's 14,000 pounds. This one was just a quick exchange. This many tons is how many pounds. I wouldn't say these are one of the easier types of problems, just to exchange one unit for another, okay? And so then you have your own problem. I'll read it to you. Just don't forget to cube it when you go to do it yourself. It says, Joanna bought 3 pounds of chicken to cook for dinner. How many ounces of chicken did she buy? And then it says blank ounces of chicken. So it says, Joanna bought 3 pounds of chicken to cook for dinner. How many ounces of chicken did she buy? Okay, so now is a good time to pause, solve it on paper, and when you've answered it, unpause the video and check yourself. Okay, so if you solve the problem yourself, the correct answer would be 48 ounces of chicken. 48 ounces of chicken. So if you got that right, great job. Skip ahead to the next problem, or you can listen to me explain. So the question, if I was to cube it, circling the key numbers, we got 3 pounds of chicken. It says how many, underlining my question, how many ounces of chicken did she buy? B, boxing in any math keywords. So it says how many ounces, and that's already set up for us. It's saying how many ounces. And so then we need to evaluate and think to ourselves what's the best way to do it, and then solve. So if I'm going to evaluate and think to myself, okay, I need to change my pounds into ounces. So I could use a picture like we've been talking about. Here are my 3 pounds. Those are my 3 pounds, and I need to exchange them for ounces. 3 pounds. So I'd go to my sheet, a pound, ounces, and I look for that relationship. Pounds, ounces. So each of those pounds is 16. So then you would have to say to yourself 16, 16, 16. If you want to write ounces, 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 you can. I'm just skipping that step. But if you wanted to write OZ for ounces, OZ for ounces, OZ for ounces. So then I would have to add all that up. If I didn't want to add it up, I could multiply, because you're kind of like making equal groups. You're doing 3 groups of 16. So I could think to myself 16 plus 16 plus 16. I could do it that way. If you didn't do it, that's fine. But you got 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 6 more is 18. And then you've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 48. If you saw it as multiplication, 3 times 16, I could do myself a quick little area model. 10 and 6 and 3. So 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 6 is 18, and then I gotta add it up. You got 48. So lots of different ways to get that answer. Okay, so we're halfway through. I've got some other problems. Again, we did the hardest ones first, and then a little bit easier. So then we're going back to a medium difficulty. And then it says select the measures that are equal. Mark all that apply. So we have on the screen 12 feet, 30 feet, 10 yards, 36 feet, or 360 inches. So this is difficult because you're like, equal to what? Well, you have to find which of these are equal to another one of the choices. So let me spell it out for you in case you don't notice that. If I've got feet, feet, and feet, I can't select more than 1 feet because 12 feet can't be 30 and it can't be 36. Okay, and then luckily you only have one with yards and one with inches. So then that kind of makes it easier. Then I don't have to think about, oh, which one is it going to be? Okay, so you always want to try and exchange feet, or excuse me, you want to change something from a larger unit to a smaller unit. So feet can be exchanged for inches. And so if you don't know how many feet are in an inch, I said that backward, how many inches are in a feet, it takes 12 inches to make a foot. Or in 1 foot, there are 12 inches. So then I could write that down if you wanted on your paper. 1 foot is 12 inches. So the problems before, what I was doing is I was drawing 12 feet, 12 boxes, 12 circles, and then I was labeling each of them 12. But what you have to get in your head is that drawing equal groups is like multiplying. So I could sit there and rather than drawing 12 groups and labeling 12 in each, I just have to think to myself, to get that number of inches, I have to multiply by 12. So 12 times 12 equals what? If you don't know that, then you have to stop and think about it. With my agenda sitting right here, I can use it. Luckily, if you don't already have that fact stored, so 12 times, I'd follow it all the way over to 12 over here. 12 times 12 is 144. And so 12 times 12 is 144. So I already know that 12 feet does not equal 360 inches. So if I'm choosing this one, I can't choose that bottom one. If I choose this bottom one, I can't choose that top one because they're not the same. Okay, so then I know I can change my feet into inches. And up here, all I had to do is multiply by 12. So 30 times 12, if you needed to write that down, 30 times 12. If you know how to do it, just by going 3 times 12 is 36, and annexing that 0 on at the end, you could do that. If you wanted to do a quick little area model and do 30 and 10 plus 2, you could. 30 times 10 is 300. 30 times 2 is 60. You put that together, you can get 360. And so hopefully you're yelling at your screen, it's right, it's right, it's right. You got one that's equal. So 30 feet matches down here to 360 inches. So now I'm thinking to myself, well, I already have a choice with feet. So then I don't need to do anything with that. And I don't need to do anything with that. Because if I already have selected something with feet and it's not the same exact thing with feet, then I can't choose it. All right, but the last thing I need to check is my yards. So 10 yards I can exchange for something smaller. And if I go, I can change my yards in for feet. So every yard I get 3 feet. That's kind of like what we did on this first problem. 1 yard you exchange for 3 feet. A second yard you exchange for 3 feet. And so here I could have done 3 times 2, 2 groups, 3 in each to get 6. So here I can just multiply by 3 to get my number of feet. So this one we don't really have to stop and think about because I hope that you could do 10 times 3. I know you all could do 10 times 3. So 10 times 3 is 30 feet. Hey, 30 feet right there. So then I'd bubble it. Those two are also equal. Okay, so then your problem is very similar. You're working with yards, inches, and feet, but it's just different numbers. So it says select the measures that are equal, mark all that apply. So then you are solving for this. It says mark all that apply. So then that means if you're choosing 2 yards, you can also be choosing 10 yards because those are not equal. But you could choose yards and feet, or yards and inches, or feet and inches. Okay, so then think about that too. If you're choosing 30 inches, you can't be choosing 72 inches. So now is a good time to pause and solve. Okay, using that agenda for when you need it. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer. If you got it right, awesome. The ones that are equal, 2 yards, 6 feet, and 72 inches. If you got all three of those right, awesome. Skip forward in the video or just listen anyways because you're already here. Doesn't hurt to hear it and know why you got it right if you did. I'm thinking to myself, this is really easy. If you could remember, if you don't remember, that's fine. This is almost similar to the problem that I did earlier. 2 yards, 6 feet, 72 inches. I just noticed that, and I did these problems earlier. So 2 yards, a yard, you can exchange for feet. So every yard is 3. So then that means if I've got 2 of them, I'd have to multiply it by 3. So 2 yards times 3 is 6 feet. And so you can see, okay, those are equal. So then if I'm choosing yards here, I can't be choosing yards again. And then since I've got 6 feet and 6 feet, I could exchange both of these for inches because they're the same thing. 6 feet here, 6 feet there. And then I could think to myself, okay, feet to inches. Every foot is 12 inches. So I could take 6 times 12 gives me 72. Okay, so then we got 2 more problems. These problems involve filling in a table. And so as long as you can use the conversion sheet, this won't be too bad. Okay, so it says a table is shown. Complete the table to show the missing dimensions. So when it says missing dimensions, hours and minutes, those are dimensions. It's a quantity of something. So you've got 4 things that are missing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the first one will be the easiest because it says 1 hour is blank minutes. So if you know that already, you could fill that in. If you didn't know, then you would go and look on your conversion sheet. 1 hour is 60 minutes. And so you can fill in 60 minutes. Okay, and then you're trying to figure out if you've got 120 minutes, how many hours is that? So then you could do it a couple of ways. You could just add 60 and 60, and 6 plus 6 is 12. So then I got 120 minutes. So 60 isn't 1 hour, and this is also 1 hour. So 120 minutes is 2 hours. Okay, if I'm trying to figure out 5 hours is how many minutes, there's a couple of ways I could do that. I could do 5 times 60 equals what? Because 5 hours, and each of them is 60 minutes. You could sit there and you could repeatedly add 60 plus 60 plus 60 5 times. You could build off of the one that we already did and say 120, that was 2 hours. 60 more, so 3 hours is 180. So another 4th hour would be 240. And then a 5th hour, I could add 60 again, which would be 300. Okay, you could also do that in the sense that you could do 5 times 6 is 30, and then annex that 0 on the end and make it 10 times greater, 300. Okay, and then one more to do. You're trying to think if you've got 600 minutes, how many hours is that? So if you're smart, and I know a lot of you are smart, you can see, oh, 300 doubled is 600. So if I double this many hours, then I could figure that out. So 5 doubled is 10. Okay, and that works because that's the same relationship there. I could always just double check 10 hours times 60 minutes. Well, 10 times 6 is 60. And then annex that 0 to make it 10 times greater. It does work. Okay, so the last problem you're going to do, it says a table is shown. Complete the table to show the missing direct dimensions. So here you also have 4 missing dimensions. So it says kilometers, blank, 2, 5, blank, meters, 1,000, blank, blank, 8,000. Okay, so by now you should have solved, if you paused your video, the correct answers. 1,000 meters is in the chart. 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer. 1 kilometer. So if 1 is 1,000, 2 is 2,000, 5 is 5,000, and 8,000 meters is only 8 kilometers, or some of you might say kilometers. It's the same thing. Kilometers, kilometers, it's just a different pronunciation. Just like some people say caramel or caramel. Not going to get into that argument, but same thing, just different pronunciation. So if you need help on how to do this, the first one is just using that information from the reference sheet. This one, you know, if you got 2 kilometers, and both of them are 1,000, so then 1,000 here and 1,000 here gives you 2,000. The same thing, if you got 5 kilometers, you would give yourself 5 circles, 1 for each kilometer, and then these are all 1,000. And so you got 5 kilometers times 1,000, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. So we got 5,000. And then here you could think of it oppositely, and you could keep adding. If I know 5 is 5,000, I add another, that's 6,000, add another 7,000, add another 8,000. So you could count how many you had to make. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8,000 meters is 8 kilometers. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to go do your practice problems. There's probably only going to be 4 problems to do, very similar to the ones that you just completed for me. So then that way, if we just practice the skill, I'm going to just try and have you do the questions similar to what we just practiced. If you need me or have any questions, just message me. I'm here to help. Bye, guys.